Are you tired of saying yes to everything? Every favor, every demand, every last minute request, only to feel overwhelmed, stretched thin, and maybe even a little lost? If that hits home, then you're in the right place. Welcome to today's episode of Late Night Love, where we're tackling the art of saying no. No isn't just a word, it's a superpower. It's the key to setting boundaries, reclaiming your time and energy, and building life that actually reflects what matters to you. In this episode, we're diving into how to master those tricky conversations, assert yourself with confidence and grace, and keep your relationships strong in the process. Whether you're feeling guilty about putting yourself first or just need a better way to turn down that urgent working lunch, we've got you covered. So grab a seat. Let's unlock the secrets of saying no like a pro. It's about to change everything. Well, let's hope so. That's a pretty big claim right there, about to change everything. But it is a point, right? The ability to say no. A lot of people, because we're a child and you don't get to say no as a child, you just don't get to. I mean, well, you get to say no, but it doesn't mean anything. And so it's difficult. That's why those teenage years are so difficult, right? Because that's where you actually have to learn how to navigate relationships where you're in charge of your relationships, at least more and more of them as you get older. And then all of a sudden you hit into the world of work where saying yes and no becomes not just saying it, but how you say it and how you approach it is more important than you could ever really imagine, right?
Unfortunately.
So, the art of saying no, it's the ability to confidently say no. It's a powerful tool, setting boundaries and prioritizing your needs, but also lets other people know that, how far they can push you, how far they can't, sometimes depending upon the personality. Sometimes it's just you taking care of yourself. So I guess first question we got to talk about, Lovey, is how do you know if you say no too often? I mean, if you don't say no enough, that's probably the better way I meant to say that.
Well, I found myself overcommitting and not having my needed downtime.
Mm-hmm.
I was not taking care of my needs. I didn't have enough time because I was doing for everyone else. So, which is often mothers do that. They prioritize themselves last and they forget if their cup runs dry, there's nothing left for the family.
And men have a similar problem. They like to help people, and so they're willing to help. So they say yes, and they say yes. And next thing you know, they've forgotten to take care of their own things. They've forgotten to do it's not like they're done less work. It's just they were doing it for somebody else. And this is something I get into. Sometimes I overschedule myself just because, saying yes makes me feel good about myself, and helping people makes me feel good about myself, especially since I get to help people who are out trying to make the world a better place. So yeah, that's not, it's not altruistic entirely, the desire to help other people and the desire to say yes. It's not necessarily completely altruistic. You get something out of it too.
You do.
And so, but at the same time, you have to set boundaries so you don't get overstressed, don't overcommit so you don't do anything well. If you're too overcommitted, none of it's going to...
That's true. No, you can't do all of it well.
Well, you're not going to do all of it well. Something is going to fail, right?
Something's got to give.
Something I deal with myself is, things... There are a few of the tasks that are on my plate that don't get done because I simply don't have time. And, it is what it is. So, and then, and some people, you can feel guilty, right, about setting your boundaries, about saying no, because you're supposed to say yes, or you've been saying yes to a long time, or maybe it's someone who you've got a long relationship of give and take, and so it's hard for you to say no to them, even though they're probably the person who would accept it the best. I'm busy this weekend, man. I just need some downtime. Oh, sure, no problem, right? Because you've helped each other out back and forth. That's the person you're least likely to want to say no to, but it's also the person that's probably the easiest to say no to. Just tell them, I'm burnt out. I needed some time off. They're not,
Just be honest.
Yeah. Surprisingly powerful. But it's those ones that are difficult to say no to, right? How do you say no to your boss?
Carefully.
Yeah, how do you manage your boss is the question. I'm not going to be able to get to that till Wednesday. Yeah, I'll do it, but I'm not going to be able to get to that till Wednesday because I got a stack of other things that's ahead of it. Unless you want me to move all those other things, it's fine. You're the boss. You sign the checks, but you got to understand the consequences of your request. And so you can say no, but if you're going to tell your boss no, you've got to tell them why. Sign the checks. They're the ones who are, it's kind of like your parents in the old days. And this time you do have the opportunity to say no because you can go home. But in a sense, right, they're the people who tell you, who dictate what your schedule is going to be because it just is. And you can tell them no. You can tell them if it's dangerous. No, I'm not doing that. It's dangerous. You do it if you want it done,
Well, I had an extremely hard time. Not saying being a woman in the workforce, you got to work twice as hard to get half the recognition that a man does. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is, or it was when I was working. So you just shut up and put your head down and you just do everything you can get your hands on.
Yeah, and it's hard to know when to say no and when not to. And so let's not pretend that this is an easy decision. Trying to discuss when to tell your boss no, when to tell your wife no, when to tell your husband no. When to tell your kids no, you just tell them no. But everybody else in the world, how do you tell your mother no? That's a hard one.
That's very hard. I was thinking about that.
Or how do you tell your grandma no? That's an even harder one. Yeah, you go tell grandma no. Yeah, knock yourself out. Have a good. Grandma might be the nicest person in the world. You just don't want to go disappoint your grandma. That's all that is. And so no one wants to tell grandma no. But there's times when you have to. How do you tell your sister, no, I'm not going to your destination wedding. I'm not doing it. How do you tell them that? I'm not flying halfway around the world for an hour. I'm not doing it. Go have fun. I'm knock yourselves out. Go elope. Don't ask half your family to go halfway around the world so you can get married in a pretty place. Just go get married in the pretty place, right? You can tell your sister. You can be a little more brutal to your sister, your brother, etc., than you can your mother, grandmother, boss. But there is an art to it, and the art to it is explaining yourself at the same time. No, I can't do that right now because I've got 10 other projects ahead of me. And if you go tell everybody, if you can go deal with all the problems that are going to come apart with me not getting those 10 things done first, fine, I'll do your thing first. But, there's 10 other people. And if your boss goes, I'll take care of that. You deal with this. Sweet, we're all good. But, because your job is to say yes to your boss if possible. Now, if it's, do you have to work overtime for the 6th week in a row, 6 days, 12-hour days for the 6th week in a row? No, I'm not. I'm just not doing it. The money's good, sure, but on occasion, I need a couple days off to rest the knees and all that kind of stuff. Spends time with the family. The money's no good if there's nothing to do with it. All I do is work and sleep. Money's worthless. So you can have those kind of conversations with your boss, and different bosses require a different technique, but learning how to manage your boss is actually a good skill. And different levels. If you're an entry-level warehouse worker, you shut up and do what you're told, right? You just do, unless it's dangerous. Unless they're asking you to do something dangerous, you shut up and do what you're told. Because that's literally your job. You're the low guy on the totem pole. Sorry. Your job is to go sweep corners. If there's, that's what your job is to do. Your job is to grab a toothbrush and go clean corners. Your job is to go grab a toothbrush and go clean corners. You can say no, but they're just going to get someone else to do it.
And somebody will.
And somebody will, because somebody knows that the person who's willing to grab that toothbrush and clean those corners well will not be cleaning those corners with a toothbrush for long. You won't. You're dependable. You're reliable. You'll do what you've asked to do. You'll take a crappy job that no one wants to do. You do it well. You become valuable. When layoffs happen and whatnot, you're the one who sticks around. Now, maybe you don't want to. That's a different question. But you're the one who would most likely, A, because you're still cheap, and B, because you're willing to dive in and do it. And places get bloated. Layoffs happen. So, all right, we're going to move on. We didn't actually answer you how to say no, because quite frankly, how to say no is instinctive. But the best way to say no is to explain yourself. Calmly and honestly explain yourself. That's it. Here's why I'm saying no. And if you're honest about it, if they don't take it well, then you know the status of your relationship. You know where your relationship really stands, whether it's personal or business.
That's very true. Yeah.
All right, so we got a few questions before we wrap up this episode. So what do we got, Lovey?
Supervisor doesn't believe 2 hours is enough as a warning for she was sick.
Yeah, well, the supervisor doesn't have to believe anything.
And, she just wasn't going to go into the office throwing up. Hello.
Yeah, no. Sometimes it happens, and sometimes supervisors can have unrealistic expectations. But, this is one of those things where at least understand where the supervisor is stressed over this. I'm not saying to change anything. I'm just saying understand where their stress is coming from. They now have a hole to fill in a lineup. You got to find someone to come in, or rearrange shifts to get whatever your tasks were for that day covered. So that's where the stress is. That's why if you can manage it, you give them as much time as possible, right? That's courtesy. That's just common courtesy. You don't always know. If you're someone like me who wakes up and 15 minutes you're out the door, sorry, there's not 2 hours. I don't know 2 hours ahead of time if I'm going to be sick, right? I've got 15 minutes before I'm out the door. So, but if you do know 2 hours ahead of time, then you call 2 hours ahead of time. It's not an unreasonable request. If the request is, if possible, call me as soon as possible, but if you get in a car accident on the way into work, that's still calling out sick, right? It's the same thing. Yeah. Sometimes there's nothing you can do. So the response is, I will do my best, but, and if you get some kind of written up notice or improvement plan or whatever, don't worry about those things. No one cares in the long run. You're not working for a corporate job, probably. So,
probably.
And that's the only time it actually matters. All right.
Is it okay to quit my job with no notice after a month?
It's okay to do anything you want.
Yeah?
Yeah. Remember, a 2-week notice is a courtesy. It's not a legal requirement unless it's in your contract somewhere. And most of those aren't even legal if you've got them anyway, even though I'm not a lawyer. It's not legal advice in any shape, manner, or form.
No.
I'm just saying, in certain states, that kind of restrictions are less legal than others. So, but no, you are under no obligation. You move on. When you found out the job isn't for you, it doesn't fit, you're actually giving everybody a better experience by moving on when you found a job doesn't fit.
Mm-hmm.
They get to find the person. You get to go off to a better job. They get to find a person who's actually going to fit. Blah, 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 blah. So you're actually doing a favor for everybody. Okay.
Is the working lunch dead?
Well, it should be dead. Well, unless you're someone whose part of your job is networking, the working lunch should be dead. The only thing you do as a working lunch is networking. That's it. If you're sales or prospective sales, depending upon whatever networking thing it is, that's it. You shouldn't be going to have lunch with your boss and then talking about work. Lunch is for getting away from that nonsense. Don't eat at your desk. Go outside at the very least. Go away from your desks in some place where you're actually.
Haven't you sent people away from their desks?
Oh, for love! I try every time I see someone eating lunch at their desk. I tell them, why the heck are you eating lunch at your desk? Go somewhere. Go do something. Go to a different desk for all I care. Just do something so you're resisting the urge to actually work through your lunch. That's not the point. The point is to get your head away from work for a little while so you can come back from lunch a little bit refreshed and a little bit ready to go. You're defeating the whole purpose. Okay. There's just no analysis where working through your lunch is a good idea. Just not on a production standpoint, not on a personal standpoint, not on a mental health standpoint. Go take your lunch, for the love of God. This is someone who doesn't really take breaks. I take 2-3 minute breaks throughout the day. I don't take a standard long break. I just find it annoying. It's too long. I get bored, so I go back to work. And as a general rule of thumb, I get plenty of breaks during the day. I'm not being abused or anything. I can take them whenever I want. I just take them in 3 minute chunks. But yes, for the love of God, take your lunches. Go. Is the working lunch dead? No, but it should be dead for everybody but those whose job it is to network. How's that?
That's an answer. There you go.
All right.
Okay, honesty or not for exit interview?
Oh, it depends how much you care or don't. I might tell them to kick rocks and never do an exit interview. It's the most honest thing I'd do. No, I'm not doing it. I'm just out of here.
What are they going to do?
What are you going to do? Fire me? Yeah. Oh, you're not going to give me a recommendation? I wasn't asking for one from you guys anyway. Now, if you've got a good, maybe if you have a good relationship with your place, you're just moving on because, you're moving on. Someone offered you to do a better job. You moved across the country. Who knows?
No, he has a full rant waiting. And he wonders if he should just give it or not.
It's entirely dependent upon you. You can, but I generally find those things, you don't do anything.
They don't.
They might make you feel better for 10, 15 minutes, but in an hour, that's it. So
an hour later, you're going to go, oh, man.
I don't even know if you necessarily do that. An hour later, it's going to be worth nothing. So I don't know. In a sense, I just get out of there. That would be my personal approach to that. But I can see if you want to tell them. Knock yourself out. I would have tried to avoid going on a rant. Don't make it personal. Try to depersonalize it. But other than that, I'd just get in and out of there as fast as possible. My personal suggestion. Yeah. I wouldn't lie, but I wouldn't necessarily volunteer anything either if I was going to do it. All right, what's next?
Okay. Company hires everyone as contract labor for a month or so before making them an employee. Why would this be?
Well, because it's essentially like a trial period. They get to have someone else deal with the initial, the contract labor company that they hire from does all the pre-screening, they do all the interviews, they just send them prospective candidates. And if those prospective candidates work out after a month, they pay the company a headhunter fee and they hire the employee. It's what they do. They're essentially using that as a screening process. Lots of small manufacturing companies do that, so they don't have to have this big HR department. They essentially offshore that function to a temp agency.
Okay.
And then they screen that person. A month is good. Most times it's longer than that. It's 90 days, 6 months. Apple went 9 months, and then you'd fire everybody, and when Apple did it. So that's actually that's a very good company if they're after a month, because that's very expensive. Because these labor companies make money by being the HR department. And so if they're actually taking that person away as no longer an employee of they're no longer acting as an HR department for that employee. So it costs them a pretty penny to actually hire that person. It's, in a sense, it's cheaper to go 6 months, 9 months before they hire them, because then so this particular company here is being as responsible and respectful for employees as you can be while still using that method. And I don't have a problem with that method as both an employee or an employer, right? It serves a purpose in the lower level of employment. You're not talking big, huge corporations. Apple did that kind of thing. Most of the time, there's small manufacturers, right? People who warehouses and things like that. And it's a perfectly reasonable way for them to, find people who need jobs. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why it's a screening thing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, this one. Oh, our last question. Accidentally called my coworker babe.
Oh, that's just embarrassing. That's all it is.
I've called people hun.
Yeah. It happens. You're tired, and stressed or whatever, and just yeah. The most famous case of this, and I forget the thing that they call it. A lot of times we think that these things are. I'm slipping. The most famous one is Ted Kennedy's, when he said he was out giving a speech, a commencement speech to a bunch of college kids, right? And so he goes something about, you guys are the breast and the brightest.
Oops.
Now, he just transposed, right? A lot of people think it's a Freudian slip. It's not. It's a linguistic flip, right? He brought the R's in from the brightest. It's just a linguistic flip. And in many respects, that's the same way. Someone wasn't really thinking all that hard. They're just kind of pumping out data, and just the wrong thing pops out. And oh God, this is embarrassing. And yes, that's all it is. It's embarrassing. And in a week, it'll be in the long list of all the embarrassing things you've done in your life. It's not the end of the world. Oh, should the only embarrassing thing that ever happened in your life be calling your coworker babe on Xbox?
Doing good.
You're doing good. All right, so that's a wrap on Late Night Love. Big takeaway tonight is saying no isn't selfish, it's essential. It's all about protecting your well-being and prioritizing your needs. Making space for the things that truly align with your values, whether it's telling your supervisor 2 hours isn't enough notice. No. Well, it's telling your supervisor 2 hours is enough notice, or deciding that working less just isn't your vibe. Assert yourself with grace and confidence. So next time you're faced with a request that doesn't feel right, take a moment, breathe, and own that no like you deserve it. You love this episode? Share it with someone who might need a little boundary setting boost in their lives. And don't forget to subscribe for more real, practical insights like this. Next time, keep saying no to what doesn't serve you and say yes to what does. Good night, and please remember to love everybody.